Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photo chats. So today I want to talk about a book. This is a book by Hank O'Neill with commentary by Berenice Abbott. And it's a story about, in a book about Berenice Abbott's work. And I find her to be a fascinating photographer. She was working in the early 1920s. She came from Cleveland, Ohio, somewhere up north in Ohio, I think. And she said she's going to move to New York. And people said, you can't move to New York by yourself. You're a woman. And she says, well, I'm gonna. And she did. And she moved to New York and she studied photography and ended up going to Paris and meeting Man Ray. Man Ray really taught her photography more. And Man Ray was making photographs and she was the person who printed them. But then sometimes she would make some of the portraits herself. And then eventually people started asking for her to be the photographer, not him. And then he fired her. And then she came back to New York and she ended up becoming a really good portrait photographer. And also she documented New York. And I just love her story. She's one of those people that we can say really says there's no rules that say I can't do something. I can do anything. And this book, I ended up picking this up at a sale. I don't think it's a very expensive book. And it has great photographs that are well printed. And it has a lot of text where you can read her words. She actually does an interview at the beginning of the here's some of her portraits. She just has like a lot of really good interesting ideas for portraiture that isn't just the regular way. She shot a lot of celebrities and artists of her time. And if you're looking for, I think books are a great thing to like give us some sense of inspiration of how other people worked. How did other people approach things? Where did they put the frame? But not just trying to see how they did it, but why did they work in a different way? She was so good at being a strong-minded woman who really broke through some of the barriers that a male-dominated photo world may have created for her. And she just went forward and she just made work. And she just made work. And I think there's an autobiography, or it's probably a biography that just came out a few years ago. And that's also a really good book too. And her story is just one of those that I think is inspiring. There's a lot of men in this business who, tend to feel like the women don't get an equal chance. And back then she really got, by making it her own, she really did take on the role of an important photographer who's making herself seen, making good, strong work. And I could know that there are many, many women photographers who are doing as good a work as men. It doesn't have a gender. It's a different whole business of creativity. I wonder if this is true. I often, when I meet women photographers, they tend to not be so much into the gear and they tend to be more into the photograph. And more men tend to be into the gear plus the photograph. And some women will say, I don't know what model camera I have, but every man knows. And some will say, I don't always remember exactly how I set the camera, but I know how to do it. And it's not in front of me, I can't tell you. But the men could tell you. It's a different approach, the way men and women, I guess, their brains work and the way they think and work and create. So if you're looking for inspiration, look at some books. They can be inexpensive. They can be something that are part of your bookshelf, part of your coffee table. And their work is kind of there always to give you a little bit extra, a little something to keep photography in your world when you're not out making photographs, and also to stay off the internet and get away from computer screens and actually have something physical. A printed book is something that shows their work in print form the way photographs really were meant to be seen. I think gallery shows come first as far as order of best way to see photographs. A book is a good second choice. And online is probably my least favorite because it's not something that I'm physically holding a tangible photograph. But anyway, Berenice Abbott, interesting photographer. early 1900s photographer doing strong portrait work and also documenting New York. And I think later she even got into like some scientific photography. All right, that's today's photography talk. Hey, if you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you can support, hit the Patreon. Thanks to all my supporters. I appreciate you. I'll be back next week. We'll talk more photography. As always, here's the good light.